football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. They them on the stage, the ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubters sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones to believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 Hive, we always wantin' more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. Yeah. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. They them on the stage, the ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. down in this football jungle. We wear the crown, all the doubters sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones that believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 Hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones that can't skip. Yeah. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. We the ones they are. The ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubters sleeping, but we making
gets out of a tackle, now turns on the Jets, up to the 30, the 20, 10, 5, Torrey Horton back to the end zone.
48-yard play, guess who? Body, up the middle, making another move, to the outside, 15, 10, end zone again.
Keeps it, nice move by Brown, he's got space, he's got 6. 35-yard touchdown for Byron Brown, a record-setting night for the South Florida quarterback.
Down so far, a little bit of a high snap. Genty right up the middle. Genty has room. Ashton Genty, give him 6.
Second and long. Lagar tries to pin it in. Runnels, it does. Runnels stays up. The Suns offense 4-3 Wheels. Incredible effort for
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live. We are excited to bring you the G5 college football coverage you love each and every week. I am Luke, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Being a parent is tough. Bedtime, even tougher. It's like every night. It's like, hey, it's time for bed, guys. And they're like, oh, tonight? We're doing bedtime? We're doing bedtime tonight? We're not talking about practice. We're talking about bedtime. And it's like, yeah. Sorry, guys. It's been a struggle. So that's why I'm a little bit late to the show tonight. Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. And don't forget, G5 Hive merchandise store is now live. Link is in the YouTube video comments, as well as pinned on our X page.
There you go, right there. I just, matter of fact, I just put it on the bottom of the video. So it's, if you want some merch, you can go to that link below. It's on the X page, and it's now in the video comments as well.
All right, Justice. So last week, you talked about going to the ODU game. You got to ask a question, but somebody recognized you. I don't think we talked about that in the show last week. So I do want to
we didn't.
go back a little bit. Let's go back to that and tell me that.
So I'm in the media room at Old Dominion after post game media room after the Texas State game 2 Saturdays ago, and I've taken off my ODU hat, put on my G5 Hive hat. I'm sitting there just waiting for the coach to come in, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, like you know that you do the G5 Hive?" And I said, "Yeah." And I'm assuming he must listen in podcast form, but maybe not. And I was like, "Yeah, I do that show." And he's like, "Oh man, I love that show. Great work, man. Keep it up." And I don't know, just it felt really good. Like some random person that I didn't know knows the show, came up and likes the show, told me thanks, and so just wanted to shout out Alec was his name. He's a photographer. They're a student photographer, I believe, at Old Dominion. So shout out to Alec. Thanks for listening or watching, whichever it is you do. Appreciate the support.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Alec. Let's get right into our G5 Hive Players of the Week for Week 9. Freshman Offensive Player of the Week. Give me a second. All right. Fluff Bothwell, South Alabama. This is Fluff's 3rd time this season for Freshman Offensive Player of the Week. Fluff rushed for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns to lead the Jaguars to a big Sun Belt victory over Louisiana Monroe in Week 9. Congratulations, Fluff.
Our defensive freshman of the week, also his 2nd time as defensive back, Jamarly Riddle, East Carolina. He would have 3 tackles, 2 solos, 2 interceptions, one of which he returned 55 yards for a touchdown to lead the Pirates to a victory over Temple in Week 9. Congrats, Jamarly.
All right. And then my Offensive Player of the Week is none other than running back Mekhi Hughes out of Tulane. He had 30 carries for 195 yards and 1 touchdown. He added 1 reception for 8 yards. Hughes' touchdown came in the 2nd quarter on a 2-yard run to extend Tulane's lead to 18. Gave him a 28-10 lead. The Green Wave needed all 203 total yards from Hughes to secure the 45-37 win over North Texas. It was a big win for Tulane as they stayed undefeated in AAC play along with Navy and Army.
I know this is probably a big shock for everybody, but my Offensive Player of the Week was quarterback Colton Joseph, Old Dominion. Colton had his coming out party, and what a time to do it. National TV, prime time on a Thursday night, and a battle for first place in the Sun Belt East. Colton was 20 for 26 for 304 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air, while adding 69 yards and another touchdown on the ground to lead the Monarchs to victory over Georgia Southern in Week 9. Congrats, Colton.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
That was, if you didn't catch that, I made that when I got home Saturday night. We published that. So, again, congratulations to Colton.
Billy Tuesday in the chat, he says go ODU. He knows how big of a game that was for you, Justice.
That was a huge game, and we'll talk about it more later when we get to the actual game. But yes, thank you, Billy. Appreciate the love. All right, for my Defensive Player of the Week, none other than safety Alexander Tubner, Boise State. He came up huge for the Broncos in their big victory over UNLV for first place in the Mountain West. Alexander had 14 tackles, 8 solos, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack in the Week 9 victory over UNLV. Congrats, Alexander.
All right, my defensive player of the week is none other than quarterback Jordan Oladokin. Bowling Green. Jordan played a big part in their 41-26 win over Toledo. Jordan was all over the field. He had 3 solo tackles, 2 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, one of which he ran back for a 61-yard touchdown. And that interception came at a crucial time. Toledo had just had a 14-play, 75-yard drive that ended in a touchdown. Toledo cut Bowling Green's lead to 4, 21-17. Bowling Green had a 3-and-out for -1 yards. John Newton just had gotten a first down, and the very next play, Jordan intercepted Gleason and returned it for a touchdown. That play extended Bowling Green's lead to 11, 28-17. Bowling Green is now 3-1 in MAC play and 1 game back of Western Michigan for first place. Congratulations, Jordan. All right. What does the Swarm need to know? What are our news and notes?
So another week, another coach got fired. Only one
G5 coaches just dropping like flies.
Yeah, only one coach so far this week. Rice fires head coach Mike Bloomgren. He was 24-52, and the Owls are 2-6 this season. Associate head coach / special teams coordinator Pete Alomar will be the interim coach. The only name that I've seen mentioned so far as a potential candidate for this job is North Texas associate head coach / special teams coordinator / tight ends coach Drew Svoboda. He's been mentioned as a potential candidate. He was an assistant coach at Rice for 3 seasons. It makes sense, right? He knows Rice. He's been at Rice. He knows Texas. Obviously, he's a coach at North Texas. So it makes a lot of sense why he would be named as a potential candidate. But I'm sure others will continue to emerge as we go through the offseason here.
So a couple things from this. So one that does make a lot of sense, knowing the state of Texas. When you think of Texas football, like Rice, typically when you ask most people, Rice isn't one of those top names. So you've got it's a hotbed for recruits there. Obviously, it's a little bit harder to get into Rice than maybe some other institutions. But when you're looking at what Coach Bloomgren was able to do over, what was it? What is it?
He was
7 seasons or so?
Yes. Yep.
And I don't know, they went bowling, right? They made 6 wins. I don't know if you're expecting more than 6 wins in a bowl. I guess what are they trying to get up? I mean,
I think
the last couple
is
years,
there was high expectations this year. There was really high. I mean, we had high expectations for Rice this year. I'm sure the fan base did too, and they're not even close to meeting those expectations.
So,
but
yeah, I just, I don't know. It makes sense because, like you said, you need to know somebody who can, navigate the recruiting around Rice, and Texas football. So that makes sense if that's the way that they go. But then again, this is one of those other things, like I mentioned, you typically see that interim head coach being a special teams coordinator. So this is one of those times that actually,
because I guess they feel like the least critical, right? Let the other guys keep doing what they were doing.
All right. I'm sorry if anyone's hearing any feedback. So I don't know if that was just justice or whatnot. So hopefully got that taken care of.
And other news, and it hasn't been talked about a lot, but it looked like the Pac-12 and Texas State reportedly have mutual interest in each other. Kind of interesting. I can see why the Pac-12 would want to add Texas State. Texas State, I'm not. I mean, I guess I see the interest, right? They figure their inclination is, hey, it's going to be a better conference than the Sun Belt. Travel wise, maybe it's a moot point for them. They go the East Coast versus the West Coast. I think the interesting thing for me would be what the Sun Belt would decide to do if Texas State left. Would they just add one to replace Texas State? Would they add potentially three? Sun Belt has conferences or divisions. The only conference that still has divisions. They're from all indications they plan to keep that, and so they could add one, or they'd have to add three to make the divisions even. I guess they could add like a Western Kentucky or a Middle Tennessee or Louisiana Tech from Conference USA. I'm assuming they would love to stay in Texas, maybe, perhaps. Maybe they would go after. I don't know. They go after UTEP though, man. That's so on the far end of Texas, far side of Texas.
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, they might want to make a move now that New Mexico is gone. But yeah, I'm not sure what state or the Sun Belt would have planned if Texas State decides to jump ship. Harrison Whaley, running back Wyoming, is back this week versus New Mexico. He's been out all season so far with a knee injury, but he is expected back this week. I think he's listed as a co-starter on the depth chart. I would expect them to kind of ease him into action. I wouldn't expect him to kind of get a full workload here in terms of, his first week back. I'm not sure if he is back into game shape, but, they do expect Harrison Whaley to play this week. I personally would not expect a full workload, but who knows? Maybe we'll see. Also, staying with Wyoming, redshirt freshman quarterback Caden Anderson was announced this week that he will get to start for Wyoming. He had been rotating with quarterback Evans Svoboda, and I don't know if he's any relation to Drew Svoboda, that assistant coach at North Texas, or not. But maybe somewhere down the line. But yeah, Caden Anderson. The last 2 weeks he had gotten some playing time behind Svoboda. He didn't start, but Evan Anderson is going to get to start this week for the Cowboys. Moving over to some injury news. Florida International quarterback Keon Jenkins started the game this past week versus Sam Houston, but he was not able to finish the game. He didn't look particularly well, and so be interesting to see if what happens this week. All reports that they've been practicing with three quarterbacks, including Keon Jenkins. He didn't look himself. I don't know if it was poor performance that got him pulled, or that's kind of what the indication was. But he had that shoulder injury, so I'm assuming that's part of it. But for the Panthers to really kind of have a shot, I think Keon Jenkins is going to need to play for them this coming week.
In that game, there's going to be probably another quarterback change there for New Mexico, right?
Yes. Oh man. And I can't think. I know he's a tall kid. I can't think of his name. He's like 6'5". Is it Brendan Dunn? I think maybe that's it. I posted it. I retweeted it from the account earlier tonight.
I noticed that we didn't have
Brandon Nunez. He's 6'5". He's dual threat. He's expected to be the starter for the New Mexico State Aggies this week. He came on, I believe, in relief last week. Looked pretty good, and so stay tuned to Nunez to see what he looks like. He's getting his first start this week for New Mexico State after returning last week. Staying in the West, Nevada quarterback Brendan Lewis did not play this past week in the game versus Hawaii, but he is expected to play in Week 10 versus the Colorado State Rams. UTEP quarterback Skylar Locklear. If you didn't see this last, I don't remember what night it was, Tuesday or Wednesday night. He took a pretty vicious hit. He was throwing the ball and he kind of jumped up, and I think it made. I mean, the hit was bad enough as it was, made it hit look even worse. He kind of took it like right underneath the chin, slammed down the ground, slammed his head. He is in concussion protocol. They said tonight that he has not been cleared yet. That therefore he will be a game time decision for UTEP's game on Saturday versus Middle Tennessee.
You would hope that, because that game was on Tuesday, so that would give him a week and a half or so to clear. Obviously, they're not linear; they're all not all the same and whatnot. But you'd think that would help.
And in his absence, J.P. Pickles came in, and I think that they said they've been preparing J.P. Pickles, all name team member. And then I don't remember who the fourth string guy is, but I guess they have been preparing them both in case they have to start. Hopefully they can get Locklear, because J.P. Pickles did not look too great out there this week. He's much more of a runner, or better at running the ball than he was at passing. Clear to see why is the number 3 quarterback. So hopefully Skylar Locklear can come back for the UTEP Miners. Miami quarterback Brett Gabbert left the game, but he was able to return. So he should be. I believe Miami has a bye this week anyway, so he's got 2 weeks to rest up. North Texas also on a bye this week, but quarterback Chandler Morris left the game. It looked like his shoulder maybe, but he was able to come back in the game. Again, North Texas also on a bye, so he's got 2 weeks to rest up before the next Mean Green game. Toledo quarterback Tucker Gleason was able to return this week. It didn't look like he had any ill effects from his injury. Central Michigan started their third-string quarterback Tyler Jefferson. He did not look good in that game for Central Michigan. Be interesting to see if Bert Emanuel is able to go this week. Tyler Huff, Jacksonville State quarterback, was banged up in week 9, but we do expect him to return and play out there tomorrow night against the Liberty Flames. UAB quarterback Jacob Zeno is out week 10, and John Kitna will look to get the start. And Kitna's looked pretty good in the games he started.
Yeah, and it'll be kind of interesting, if Kitna is able to put another solid game out there on tape. What does Dilfer do there at the quarterback position, assuming Jacob Zeno is able to return this season? It was a shoulder injury, so we'll see if he's able to come back. And if he is able to come back, what does Coach Dilfer do? But if, a lot of coaches like to say you can't lose your job because of injury, but Kitna's been throwing the ball around. If he's able to do that again, maybe Kitna's got the job.
Memphis running back Mario Anderson got banged up. He was in the game, got banged up, left. Then he came back. There really aren't any concerns for him heading into week 10. That Memphis running back room's kind of been battling injuries throughout the year, but they look like they're finally getting some other guys back and healthy. Brandon Thomas and Greg DeRoziers Jr. Malik Sherrod, Fresno State running back, he missed week 9. Would not count on him for this week. One thing that's kind of interesting. I was looking at his stats today. He's played in 4 games this year. So if he wanted a red shirt, he does have a red shirt year available. If he decides he wants the red shirt, he just can't be. As long as he doesn't play any more games, he could, in theory, take this year as a medical red shirt. So stay tuned. If we don't see Sherrod play anymore, good chance that's what he's going to do, and he will redshirt.
And something kind of interesting too. Fresno State just hasn't had very many explosive rushing plays this year in general, and they've been
And
pretty
Sherrod hasn't
good.
played very much. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they play that here for the rest of the season.
I kind of feel like that's kind of how it played out last year too, right? Remember Sherrod was hurt to start the year. Elijah Gilliam got a lot of run, and he did okay stat wise, but he's not explosive as Sherrod, and we saw that I think with Gilliam last year, and we're just kind of seeing the same thing again this year. But they are rotating some other backs in. Bryson Donaldson, one of those backs that's kind of rotating in a little bit with Elijah Gilliam. Saturday morning, some pretty big news out of Utah State. It was reported that wide receiver Jalen Royals is sitting out the rest of the season. He has an injury, and they thought maybe he wouldn't be able to return. There is some optimism on whether he will return or not.
So yeah, there's just like all this like what's news, what's not news. It was just like all kind of weird. Like if we go through the timeline, it's like they have I'm in Central Time Zone, so they had like a 6 o'clock game, so 7 o'clock for you. But then there's news that drops from some account that is or is not tied with Utah State. It was kind of like
it was a reporter.
as a reporter,
Yep.
and saying like, "Hey, he's gonna
He's
miss
out
the
for the year.
season."
Yeah.
And then Pete Thamel comes out, I don't know, an hour or so after that, says, "Yep, confirms that he's gonna miss the season." But like, I'm not saying he's not gonna miss the season, but also like, I think those reports are out there prematurely. Like, I don't know. I just he's got some chances to break some records, and I think that if he's able to come back, I think he's going to come back this year.
I would agree. I mean, because like, if he wasn't a true Utah State guy, he had plenty of chances to leave over the summer, right? He could have left before when the portal was open. He could have left when they fired Coach Anderson. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think like if the injury allows him to come back and play for a couple games, I wouldn't be surprised to see him out there and playing for a couple games for the Aggies.
Then I've seen like a couple things just on message boards and whatnot, like, oh, he's going to sit out for the rest of the season. Like he's not hurt. He's just getting ready for the draft. And I don't think that's the case at
No,
all.
that's not true. He definitely has an injury. Sticking with Utah State, someone that is out for the year, Brock Lane, tight end. He will miss the remainder of the season with a torn ACL. New Mexico wide receiver Luke Wysong did not finish the game this past week against Colorado State. He was seen in the sidelines on a boot. So I would say he looks fairly doubtful for the week. Game this week versus Wyoming.
Did you see that play at all? So like,
I don't remember that exact play.
So he was like running on the left side and ball gets thrown out. It's out of bounds. I think there were cheerleaders or somebody out there. There was like a cluster of people and like he goes down. He kind of got pushed a little bit too. Some people are calling it a dirty play. I don't know. I didn't see it that way, but he got pushed down and just like, I don't know if he stepped on the ball weird or like what exactly. I couldn't see it perfectly, but like he came up and he was hobbling. He was not putting much weight on that leg. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a chance he could play. Maybe they've got the Clemson like witch doctors that like at different places, but like just watching that play, like I don't know. I feel like it's going to be hard for him to play this week. They've got Wyoming, so we'll see what they're able to do.
Hawaii wide receiver who missed the previous week. He was back this week. Didn't look like any ill effects from whatever was ailing him. Temple wide receiver Dante Wright did not play this past week. He has a bye this coming week, so he has 2 weeks to kind of see if he can't to get right for the Owls. Florida Atlantic wide receiver, we talked about this last week. They were on a bye last week, but he was a surprise out the week before, but it does look like he is on track to be back this week for the Owls. UTSA wide receiver Devin McEwen did not play. Still not his return is we're not sure yet. I mean, I guess there's a chance he could play this week. Maybe there'll be some more information later on in the week to see if he's able to come back.
I don't know. Just based on the lack of news that we've had out there, reading between the lines, like I think it's going to be an uphill battle for McEwen. But again, we'll see. They've been throwing around. They've been doing. I mean, they had a tough loss this last week, but they've been doing pretty well without him. So obviously, it would help him if he's able to come back. But I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it.
Middle Tennessee tight end Holden Willis. He's fairly questionable for this week. They do play on Saturday. So, again, he's got a couple extra days to get ready versus UTEP. They hope to have him ready for Saturday, but he's got to get some clearance first before he can play in that game.
I want to go back to this Utah State drama in Jalen Rose and just like the time frame that like when you look at things, and I think of like how things are in the NFL when they bring back guys from injuries and they try to use the bye week here and there. Utah State's got a bye this week. There's no news, obviously there's gamesmanship and stuff. You got to like, hey, we're going to hold stuff close to the chest. We're not going to let people know that, this player's out or whatnot. So I'm not, again, going back, I'm not so sure that he's going to be out for the year. Like, if he's going to miss that game and then they've got a bye week, maybe they're seeing, hey, how does he bounce back after after having pretty much 2 weeks off? Just reading in between the lines and how the NFL does it, I would assume it's going to mimic something very similar. I mean, we've seen it with plenty of other teams, and especially at P4 programs like Ohio State when they have people hurt and whatnot. So, I don't know. Just something else to think about as we move along in this college football season.
All right, let's get over to the top 25. So G5 in the Associated Press top 25 poll, Boise State moves up 2 spots to number 15 after their win over UNLV. They basically just gained the spots back from the week before, so they were 15. Then they had a bye week, and even though they didn't win, they didn't lose either. They dropped to 17. Now they're back up to 15. So they lost 2 spots during their bye week. The interesting why I point that out is Army was on a bye this last week, and they gained 2 spots. So Army, prior to their bye week, was number 23, and they are now up to number 21. Navy, who was in the top 25, I believe they were number 24, I believe. Anyway, they dropped after their loss to Notre Dame this past week. Others receiving votes this week, Memphis comes in at number 27 with 34 votes. Tulane would be 28 with 28 votes. Navy still got some votes. They came in at number 29 with 23 votes. UNLV, number 31 with 4 votes. And Louisiana comes in at number 33 with 3 votes.
All right, Justice. Do the games matter? Does the regular season even matter? Because when I look at this, I can't tell you that they do.
Looking at the AP poll?
Yeah. I mean, let's just look at the G5. We've got Memphis, 34 votes. I love Memphis. I'm a fan of Memphis. But didn't they lose to Navy?
They did.
And Navy just got into the top 25, and then they lost to now number 8 Notre Dame. So you lose to number 8 Notre Dame, and you drop out of the top 25 and behind the team that you beat.
Yeah, I mean the rules don't apply to the G5. Like when a P4 loses to another ranked P4, like they get dinged a little bit, sure, but
it doesn't matter. And I'll even take it to the P4 because I'm here in Iowa. Iowa State's undefeated. I'm a Hawkeye fan, but like you're outside the top 10 and you're undefeated. I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. So
it's the G5 media bias, unfortunately, and I don't know what's gonna make that change. The thing I'm interested to see, and BYU is gonna have to lose for it to happen. But if I think if Boise State and Army can stay undefeated, that means Army's gonna have to beat Notre Dame. If they can stay undefeated and BYU loses the game, then I think both of those teams should be, and they will be, I think, ranked higher than whoever the number one Big 12 team is. And at the end of the day, if that happens, that means those two teams get a bye. That's what that means. And so, I think people will lose their mind if that happens. I think like the national media and some, the general college football fans, they're going to lose their minds if that happens. And I think it's more than it's more of a possibility than folks want to admit, that if Boise State and Army, if one of those teams, I think one of those teams has a really good shot. Two of them is probably a long shot to be ranked higher than the Big 12. But I do think it's a possibility, and I hope it happens, man. I want to see people kind of lose their mind over that. That'd be pretty awesome. All right, well, let's get to the poll that matters. The G5 Top 25 presented by Hero Sports. We are voters in this particular poll. And I think there's 15, maybe 20 of us. A lot of beat reporters are that follow the G5. They're G5 beat reporters are voters in this poll. See it on the screen. These are the poll after as we head into week 10. Boise State number 1, Army 2, Tulane 3, UNLV 4, Memphis 5, Navy 6, Louisiana 7, Western Kentucky 8, JMU 9, Sam Houston 10, Fresno State 11, Liberty 12, North Texas 13, Louisiana Monroe 14, Texas State 15, Bowling Green 16, Georgia Southern 17, Colorado State 18, Toledo 19, San Jose State 20. And then at 21, we have a tie making their debut, Old Dominion and Marshall. Number 23, Miami. Number 24, Western Michigan. And tying at 25, Jacksonville State and the Yukon Huskies. We submitted our votes, I guess it was last night. Kind of the things that kind of stood out to me. Not a whole lot of difference between our votes and what you see here on the consensus, but just a couple of minor differences. We do not have JMU in our top 10. They are 12th. We have Liberty 14th versus the consensus 12th. We're a little bit higher on Miami. We have Miami at 16. The consensus has them at 23. I lost my spot.
We got Western Michigan at 19, while the consensus has them at 24. I mean, they're leading right now the MAC.
They're leading the MAC, yeah. I think we had them ranked last week, and I don't think they were ranked by the consensus last week, too.
And then we got San Jose State. Ever since this whole quarterback debacle has just been going downhill the last few weeks, we do not have them ranked in the consensus. They're number 20. We also had South Alabama ranked at 22, and I don't.
They were in the others receiving votes. I didn't look to see where they were in the others receiving votes. But they had a big win this week over UL Monroe.
So you just know we just seem to be a week ahead, Justice. So we'll see.
All right. That's all right.
I'm sure we'll see South Alabama in there next week, and maybe San Jose State out next week. We'll see.
San Jose State's on a bye, so maybe I don't know. Maybe they'll lose spots on the bye.
We've got undefeated teams through 9 weeks. We had Liberty Flames, but they lose to Kennesaw State Wednesday. Very, very interesting game. Navy loses to Notre Dame, like we talked about, and there remains only one undefeated team in the G5, and that's the Army Black Knights. They have Air Force this week, a team that
I
knows
like their odds to stay undefeated.
I like their odds as well, but it'll be one of those teams that at least can prepare for that triple option a little bit better than most teams. So maybe this won't be as much of a blowout as one would think, but I don't know. They've been a they've been a wagon lately. They're just crushing it. Winless teams through 9 weeks. We had the Kennesaw State Owls, but they get their first win by beating previously undefeated Liberty Wednesday, leaving Kent State Golden Flashes, who are on their bye, as the only winless team in the G5, currently sitting at a 17-game losing streak. So we'll have to wait another week. We'll have to wait till week 11 to see if Kent State can get a win, but hasn't been fun to be a Kent State Golden Flashes fan lately. Our G5 bowl count currently sitting at 9 teams. The G5 teams that are eligible for the bowls: Army Black Knights, Navy Midshipmen, Memphis Tigers, Tulane Green Wave, UNLV Rebels, Louisiana Raging Cajuns, Sam Houston Bearcats, Boise State Broncos, and James Madison Dukes. I'm not going to I liked the coaching staff with James Madison coming in, but honestly, this probably them being bowl eligible by week 9 was something I did not expect. And I think when the average fans look at it like, oh, they've been good, I just don't think they're going to they're able to comprehend all of the changes. This is an amazing season. This will be one of the coach of the year candidates, from the G5 standpoint. Obviously, Louisiana Monroe is probably, and Louisiana Raging Cajuns are up there.
Probably Sam Houston too with Casey Keeler.
No, you would think so. I mean, some of us called it. Some of us knew. Some of us were on those Bearcats. But I guess, yeah, you were right. So, yeah. What are the good stuff? What's the nectar for this week? Week 9 in review. We've got midweek G5 matchups. Sam Houston at Florida International. In this one, Justice, you got eyes on it. Sam Houston wins an ugly one, 10-7.
Yeah, it was a super ugly game. It was not very entertaining. As I said earlier, Keon Jenkins, the Florida National quarterback, got pulled or was hurt or whatever. He was 1 for 9 at that point for 16 yards, so he wasn't setting the world on fire. Chaden Perry came in to play quarterback, so it was rough for Florida National. And then Sam Houston was without Hunter Watson. Jace Bauer played quarterback. He didn't look great either. Kind of the big play in the game was Sam Houston got a blocked punt. They said it was a touchdown, but it wasn't. He was down at I don't know, the 1 yard line, 2 yard line. But anyway, they were able to punch that in and get that touchdown there. And then a field goal to win 10-7. They did miss 2 other field goals. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Billy. That was a super rough game to watch. Both the games on Tuesday night were pretty rough games. It was not quality football by any stretch of the imagination.
And Justice, have you seen anything about Hunter Watson? I mean, obviously he missed that game. Do we expect him back this week? We didn't talk about him in the news and notes section, but
yeah, I think Hunter Watson should be expected to play this week against. They play. No, it's not Liberty. I'm not sure they play this week, but I do expect Hunter Watson to be back.
All right, and then we had UTEP at Louisiana Tech. That was also a Tuesday night game. Louisiana Tech wins 14-10. Javon
Yes.
Jackson has another big game. 22 carries,
Yeah.
112 yards, and Bullock there for Louisiana Tech had 248 yards passing and a touchdown.
Yeah, Javon Jackson kind of was the highlight of the game. As I mentioned earlier, UTEP quarterback Skylar Locklear got knocked out by that vicious hit by Zach Zemos. And then JP Pickles came in, and JP Pickles was not very good. So again, yeah, another ugly game on a Tuesday night. Hopefully that trend will go away this week.
All right, and then we had the big game. We all knew coming into it was going to be a great one on Wednesday. Liberty at Kennesaw State, in which we saw Kennesaw State pull the upset, 27-24. Salter led the Flames in rushing and obviously passing. He had 3 for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, had 9 carries for 87 yards. But Robinson, wide receiver there for Kennesaw State, had 72 yards on 3 receptions. He was the leading wide receiver in the game. I tuned in here and there, and then I was like, oh, well, like, it's a matter of time before Liberty gets it going. And then it's been the story all season. Like, this is kind of what Liberty does, is they keep it close, and they're always able to pull it out in the end. And this time they didn't.
Yeah. They, I mean, it was such a big win for Kennesaw State. They rushed the field twice.
That's right. Yeah, they lost.
But
they were
so
nice going off the field. They knew how big it was. They're like, all right, let's get off the field real quick.
Yeah. And I thought that was going to be a mess at the end. Like there was 1 second left, and they were pretty clear. But then they called it game, and then they went back and said, "Oh no, there's 1 second left. Please clear the field." And to my surprise, they were able to do that in a fairly short time frame. Liberty hasn't. I don't know. Liberty hasn't been impressive all year. Like I said, we've talked about before. They should have lost to New Mexico State earlier in the year, in my opinion. I certainly didn't expect them to lose to Kennesaw State, though. And the Kennesaw State offense, that was I would be willing to bet their best game by far this season.
Wasn't Liberty coming off the bye too?
Liberty, well, they're coming off really a double bye, I believe, right? Because the app game got canceled. Maybe there was a game in between. Maybe I have that mixed up. But nonetheless, they at most they've only played every other week for the last month because the app game got canceled. So they should have been well rested. Now that could explain maybe why they didn't play as well, because they just hadn't been playing. But I mean, they should have beat Kennesaw State. But yeah, kudos to Kennesaw State. The winless taking down the undefeated.
All right. And then I don't know. We probably should just skip over this game. Nothing really happened on Thursday. Right? So Justice, you were there.
Oh no, we didn't get to the other Wednesday game.
Sorry. Middle Tennessee, Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State pulls out the win 42-20. Nicholas Vadiato leads UTSA or MTSU, sorry, with passing 297 yards passing for 2 touchdowns. Stewart, a beast on the ground, 210 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then Omari Kelly, 8 receptions, 128 yards receiving. This is a high-scoring game. But
it wasn't much of a game. I mean, Jacksonville State just ran all over Middle Tennessee, man. It wasn't a close game at all.
We had some Andrew Paul sightings, Georgia transfer. So
yeah, it was Jacksonville State looked great. Middle Tennessee, not so much.
All right. Thursday night, big game. Syracuse went to Pittsburgh. Oh, no? Okay, Georgia Southern, ODU. ODU, big game, for the Sun Belt there. ODU gets a win, 47-19. Take it away, Justice.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was military appreciation night. They had a flyover. They had some military members there. They had some military folks on the run out for the team. At halftime, they had a drone show, and it was the guys that did the drones on America's Got Talent. And I've never seen a drone show before. That was freaking awesome. I posted some pictures from it from my personal account. I don't think I posted those pictures from the G5 Hive account. But yeah, like I said, the band was playing. They played all the military fight songs, and they had a helicopter for the Marines. They had a cutter for the Coast Guard, a fighter jet for the Air Force. They had the state of Virginia outlined with 757, which is the area code. But probably like the coolest thing was they had an American Eagle that was looked like a normal eagle, and then it changed colors, red, white, and blue. But the coolest thing was they had ODU's mascot, Big Blue, in the drones, and then it spelled ODU underneath. That was probably like the coolest thing, I thought. But yeah, it was a great show. And then Thursday night prime time, ESPN2, battle for first place in the Sun Belt East. Yeah, it was an exciting game if you're an Old Dominion fan. Old Dominion just took them to the woodshed, buddy. I hate to admit this as an Old Dominion fan, but I was a little nervous after halftime because we've been known to blow some big leads before. We were up 28-0 in the bowl game and ended up losing. And so I was a little bit nervous, as we went to the second half. And Georgia Southern got the ball first, and we proceeded to intercept them and get a touchdown. So that kind of allayed my fears. I mean, it was one of the most complete games I've seen Old Dominion play in a long time. Colton Joseph played phenomenal. I mean, his stat line, 20 for 26, pretty freaking awesome. But I'm going to tell you, there's at least two passes I know he wished he had back. They would have gone for touchdowns. He overthrew a receiver that was wide open twice. But yeah, great, just a great game all around. I was so jacked up. I don't think I went to bed till 3 a.m. My voice was a little bit hoarse the next day. But yeah, just a great game. And the post game, got to ask my second question. So Colton Joseph was in there in the post game presser, and I played a clip earlier of the particular play, but this was his 30-yard touchdown run. The cornerback, he showed the blitz super early. Why he did that, I don't know. But the cornerback kind of showed that he was planning on blitzing fairly early as they're getting ready to hike the ball. And so I asked Colton about that particular play, if he could walk us through it. And so I'll play that clip right here. Walk us through that touchdown run on the cornerback blitz.
Yeah, so saw them blitz in the right side, floated or moved the back over there, was going to read him. They flipped it as soon as I did that, so I knew I was hot off the left edge, and he came in full steam ahead. I thought if I pull this here, he's too far downhill for him to retrace, and it was just green grass from there.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
So that was his explanation of the play. That was the play there once again. And shout out to the ODU Monarchists. They videotaped those post games. So I was able to pull that clip from that video. So shout out to them for providing those post game videos.
And then, not to be outdone, but the big game.
It was the G5 game of the week. No doubt.
But going into it, the game of the week we thought was going to be Boise State and UNLV.
Well, I was saying Boise State UNLV was the game of the week, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. So that lived up to the hype. That was a good game overall. Boise State wins 29-24. I think you had mentioned you thought UNLV would.
I did.
Maddox Madsen was able to do just good enough. 209 yards passing, 1 touchdown. Genty was human with 128 yards on the ground and a touchdown.
I
Ricky
think
White pretty much held in check too for
the,
UNLV.
the story of that game and why Boise State won that game was their pass rush. Their pass rush won them that game. UNLV had zero answers for that pass rush, and that's what cost them the game. I was not aware of how good that Boise State pass rush has been. They talked about it in the broadcast. I think they have the most sacks in all of football, definitely in the G5. And I would just not, I don't know. I'd watched them play, but I just was not aware of how great that pass rush has been. And it's not just one person, it's like a collective group. And UNLV had zero answers for that. And so I, for one, am super excited to see part 2 and to see what adjustments UNLV can make to kind of help with that pass rush. I'm going to assume they're both going to play each other in the Mountain West Championship. At that point, I want to see Boise State win, though, right? Because if UNLV wins, then it just kind of messes things up in terms of rankings and the playoffs and all that. And so at this point, like I'm hoping Boise State can go undefeated, but UNLV, like I say, UNLV can give them a run for the money, but they're going to have to solve that pass rush.
All right, in our G5 P4 matchup, we had number 12 Notre Dame taking on number 24 Navy. This game wasn't particularly close, mainly due to some turnovers. Justice, you got to watch. I was at a kids' basketball event, so I did not get to watch much of this, which, looking at highlights, there weren't a lot.
Navy shot themselves in the foot. They had two fumbles, and then they muffed a punt that was recovered by Notre Dame. And so before you know it, I think they're down 28-7. And Navy just isn't built to come back down 28-7. Their defense, they were able to run the ball on Notre Dame, but their defense was not able to do much with that Notre Dame offense. So yeah, it wasn't. I had high hopes, thought it'd be a better game, but when those 3 turnovers happened and Notre Dame turned those into points, I knew it was kind of over at that point. I didn't watch the second half. I watched till halftime, and then I think it was 28-7 at halftime. Might have been 35-7. I'm not sure, but yeah, I knew it was over at that point.
I mean, kind of just highlights someone just like being more athletic. And then obviously the service academies are different with like, hey, to be in the Army, to be in the Navy, to be in the Air Force, you have to be a certain size. Obviously, I mean, we will see how Navy or how Army fares this week, but that was on display of that difference there. All right. Featured G5 matchups. We had Buffalo at Ohio. Buffalo loses this one. It was 47-16. Ricky Hunt got the start. He had 9 carries, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. You had Owen with a big game for Ohio, 6 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. I did not get eyes on this one. Were you able to watch this at all?
I did not. I know Shea Taylor had a big game for the Ohio defense. Parker Navarro had a big game. Parker Navarro, like when he doesn't get yanked for turnovers, he can produce. He's got. I think he even had turnover in this game, but yeah, I mean Ohio just kind of looked like the much better team than Buffalo. Buffalo's kind of been weird. Like they've been very up and down. But Ohio got the best of them in this game.
And then we had Tulane at North Texas. Tulane wins 45-37. I got to watch a little bit of this, but not a whole bunch. But the score is actually closer than the game actually was. They're in the last, I don't know, 5-6 drives. North Texas scores 13 points at the end of the game to bring it closer, but they were just trying to run it out. I mean, there was Mekhi Hughes there, and then they just had a lot of 3 and outs, but it was mainly just like, hey, let's get this game over. North Texas made it. So if you're just box score and you're not actually watching the game, like, oh, that was a close one, North Texas.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was never really in doubt. I don't think Tulane was clearly the better team.
I mean, Morris, unbelievable game, 449 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. DT Sheffield, 9 receptions, 125 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown. And then my player of the week, Mekhi Hughes, had 30 carries for 195 yards and a touchdown, 8 yards receiving. He got him over that 200 mark. He was on track as soon as that game started. Like, he was probably close to 100, if not over 100, like in the first quarter. Like, he was awesome. Central Michigan at Miami of Ohio. I got to watch this game. Miami of Ohio wins 46-7. I watched on and off in the second half because it was a trouncing. Like 46-7, it wasn't even that close. Watching it, Miami of Ohio just was dominant, and the fact that they're 4-4 is wild to me. They're 3-1 in MAC play, but it was a dominant performance. Bowling Green at Toledo. This was a great game.
It was a great game.
I got to watch all of this game. Obviously had my defensive player of the week in here, but Bowling Green wins 41-26.
That interception, like you said, that was the turning point of that game. Like Toledo was driving and had a chance to take the lead.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I highlighted that like scenario, because like they just got a touchdown, a 3 and out, you just get a first down, and if that interception doesn't happen and they go down and then they take the lead, like I think that was just a momentum shift, and kind of helped keep Bowling Green on top. Tucker Gleason comes back from his week absence, 320 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Stewart for Bowling Green had 99 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then Newton for Toledo had 164 yards on 9 receptions for 2 touchdowns.
I think Harold didn't get 100, but I think he had 74 and a touchdown. I think that's what he ended up with. Still a good game, and I think he ran the ball 1 or 2 times as well.
Yep, he did. Let's see here. Another game that we had on our Saturday featured G5 matchups was New Mexico at Colorado State. New Mexico falls in this one 17-6. Avery Morrow,
disappointing game.
I thought New Mexico was gonna win this one. I really did. Dampier had 319 yards passing, no touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions. Luke Wysong getting hurt obviously kind of changed a little bit of this, but Avery Morrow, even like I thought he would run for more because they've kind of switched up what they're doing. They're passing a lot.
Colorado State has absolutely remolded their offense.
So he had 16 carries for 89 yards. I did not see this one coming. I thought New Mexico could have pulled this one out.
I thought we'd see more points. I mean, there was a call in the game that like they reviewed it and they overturned the call on the field, which I thought was the wrong decision. It was an option play with Dampier. He flipped it out, and they ended up calling it a forward pass. And from it did not look not even close to a forward pass to me. It looked pretty clearly behind. I don't know if they had a better angle than what they showed on TV or better camera angle, but for them to overturn it, I'm assuming they must have, because it certainly didn't look like a forward pass to me. And that was a big call in the game. But yeah, it was not the game I had expected when I tuned in. I expected a lot more offense than what we got. And
then flip side, a game that I didn't think was going to be like super high scoring was Louisiana Monroe versus South Alabama. The Louisiana Monroe defense has been like lights out this year. And then South Alabama's just kind of been like inconsistent. They seem to be like this engine. If I had to best describe, it's like this engine that like has a piston that keeps misfiring. It's like they'll have this hiccup every so often. But yeah, I gotta watch a little bit of this one. And South Alabama rolls 46-17.
They ran
Two
all
running
over.
backs. You had Fluff and Bullock with over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pritchett, 11 receptions for 89 yards. Lopez, 169 yards passing. It was South Alabama was
a bit of a
rolling.
shocker.
I mean, a big game too, because that win for South Alabama, the loss for UL Monroe, both teams are now 3-1 in the Sun Belt.
Big log jam in the West.
So, then San Jose State, Fresno State. I'm not sure if you were able to watch any of this. I got to watch a little bit of this, and it was gross. Fresno State win.
Ugly. It was ugly watching it too, because they both were. Fresno State was in all black, and San Jose State wore white shirts with black pants. It was not a visually pleasing game, in my opinion.
Fresno State wins 33-10. Mikey Keene has a pretty big game, 275 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Floyd Chalk with an 89 yards rushing, and then Justin Lockhart. Ever since the change at quarterback, he's been getting his numbers boosted. He had 4 receptions for 93 yards, and we'll be revisiting Justin Lockhart a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand what San Jose State's doing, because like Walker Egan, like whenever I watch him, he ain't it, man. He ain't got it, buddy. And maybe Emmett Brown has some faults, but the offense looked a lot more effective, looked a lot better when he's been leading the helm. And once again, head coach, we'll just call him Ken. Head coach Ken Nauma Talalolo made a comment about we got to stop switching quarterbacks. Well, I feel like we've heard that comment from him like the last 3 or 4 weeks. Like, okay, you're the head coach, do something about it, buddy. Right? Like, stop telling us you got to stop doing it, and then you keep doing it. I just do not understand what has gone on to make Emmett Brown like so dispensable, I guess. The offense just looks so much better when he's running it than when Walker Egan's running it. So I don't know.
You want to talk about a maddening offense. Nevada at Hawaii. Hawaii wins 34-13. Hawaii gets their first win in the Mountain West. Nevada obviously did not have Lewis there. Yeah. Purdy start. They fall. They're now 0-3 in the Mountain West. And just like we all wrote it up, Braden Shager was going to have 4 rushing touchdowns, 120 yards rushing. We all saw that coming.
It was just the Hawaii run. It was not the Hawaii run and shoot. There was a lot of running by Hawaii in this game, not much passing. Did Shager even throw for 100 yards? I don't know that he did, but maybe he did.
Let me pull up the box score here.
My gut says he threw for like 96 or something.
He threw for 153 and an interception.
Okay. Yeah, it was not a run and shoot. It was the Hawaii run offense. Not an exciting game to watch. I stayed up and watched it. I don't think it ended till 2 a.m, maybe later. But yeah. Did not expect to see, like you said, Shager running it in for 4 touchdowns. But hey, they got the win, and that's what matters, right?
Absolutely. All right, our Week 10 preview. We're going to leave Week 9 in our rearview mirrors. We're going to look forward to Week 10, our midweek games. We have New Mexico State at Florida International tomorrow or later tonight, depending on when you're listening to this, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thoughts of this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to who can play quarterback for Florida International. I think for Florida International to kind of have a shot to win, Keon Jenkins is going to have to play, and he's going to have to be effective. If he can't play or he's not effective for the game, then I'm not sure that that the Panthers really have a shot. He kind of makes their offense go. Their running game has not been very good all year. But Keon Jenkins can make that passing game go with their two receivers, Dean Patterson and Eric Rivers. So I'm hopeful that Keon Jenkins is fully healthy and he's able to play. And then, as we mentioned, Brandon Nunez starting for New Mexico State. So I'm just kind of interested to see him. I don't know much about him. Heard he's a big threat. He's a big guy. He's 6'5". So I'm just kind of interested to see how Nunez plays.
All right. Louisiana at Texas State, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't love this game for Texas State. I do like that it is at home. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a huge game for the Sun Belt West. I think Louisiana is the one undefeated in the Sun Belt West. Yeah, they're 3-0. Texas State's 2-1. So yeah, I'm super interested to kind of. I mean, this game probably, well, if Texas State loses, it probably eliminates them from winning the Sun Belt West. But if Texas State wins, then you got like a log jam, I think, of 4 teams or so that are 3-1, maybe 5 teams. And so it'll be a hotly contested race to kind of see who can win that Sun Belt West. Texas State is favored by 3.5. The total in this game is 58.5.
All right, Jacksonville State at Liberty, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Oh, before I get to that one, Louisiana Tech at Sam Houston, Tuesday night at 8 p.m. This one's at Sam Houston. Sam Houston coming off an ugly win against FIU. We expect Hunter Watson to be back for the Bearcats. Again, I'm not sure if it is a raw or meow. Please, someone for Sam Houston, let me know what it is. In this one, I would anticipate him being back would be good enough to get the win, plus being at home. Louisiana Tech has been playing a lot better with Bullock there under center. So we'll see how it goes. Bullock going under center. True Edwards has come on as of late with that move for Bullock. But what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, I think the Vegas line is Sam Houston by 10.5. That tells me Vegas expects Hunter Watson to play. Because I don't think they're a 10.5 favorite if it's announced Jace Bauer is the starting quarterback. I think they still win the game probably, but they're not a double-digit point favorite with Jace Bauer as the quarterback. So good news for the Bearcats and Hunter Watson. Total 45.5. I don't know, like it could be a little bit on the high side. I think I think if Hunter Watson's quarterback, I could see Sam Houston scoring in the 20s. I don't know that I can see Louisiana Tech scoring in the 20s. So
all right, Billy, you're in the chat. You're always in the chat. You're here every week. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Hunter Watson's gonna lead Sam Houston in rushing this week. That's my call. He's going to be their leading rusher. He's gonna run the ball as much as he can against Louisiana Tech. Let's go to Wednesday night games. We've got Jacksonville State at Liberty, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Jacksonville State been running the ball really, really well. They're 3-0 in CUSA play. You got Liberty 3-1 coming off the disappointing loss to Kennesaw State. I just like Jacksonville State in this one. I get that I get that it's at Liberty, so that, theoretically, betting wise, being at home, that means you should probably be at about a 2.5-ish if you think that's even. So you think, you get roughly that field goal for being at home. So I would expect the spread to be roughly around that 2.5, and I would take Jacksonville's points.
Yeah, it's Liberty. Liberty's favored by 2. Over under 63.5. I'm with you. Like, to me, I'd take Jacksonville State all day. Jacksonville State has looked really, really good. And seeing what Kennesaw State did on the ground to Liberty, I'm scared to think what Jacksonville State's going to do to Liberty on the ground.
All right, Billy Tuesday keeping me keeping me accountable. I like it, Billy. All right, then we've got Kennesaw State at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky 3-0. I mean, Kennesaw State just the Dragon Slayers. I mean, if you're undefeated, look out. Granted, Western Kentucky isn't a true undefeated, but this is at Western Kentucky. I don't know what more there is to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and take Western Kentucky in this one. I think it's going to be hard. They're not having the hiccups that Liberty's having.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think Western Kentucky wins this game fairly easily. The spread is Western Kentucky by 24 with an over-under of 50.5. So if that over-under happens, most of those points have to come from Western Kentucky. I don't know that Kennesaw State's going to score as many points as they did against Liberty last week against Western Kentucky, and they're certainly not built to keep up with an offense, scoring wise as Western Kentucky. So yeah, I'm with you. Western Kentucky, I think, wins this easily.
All right, Tulane at Charlotte, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm gonna take Tulane. They're just clicking right now. They're 4-0 in the American. Charlotte's 2-2. They actually, gave Memphis a scare this last week.
I was gonna say it's Halloween. Maybe we see something a little spooky happening, or it could be a frightmare for Tulane.
I mean, maybe Tulane doesn't cover, but Charlotte's gonna make it sounds like they're gonna make the switch at quarterback to I'm trying to remember Purdy. Sounds like they're gonna make that switch. So we'll see how getting a whole week of practice and everything works for him. But I still like Tulane in this one.
Tulane's favored by 16.5, over under 55.5. When I watched that Charlotte-Memphis game, I was impressed by freshman Deshaun Purdy. He's got a heck of an arm in terms of strength, man.
Yeah, he made a lot of really good throws. I mean, made bad throws too, but
yeah, he made freshman mistakes clearly, but he showed me something. I was impressed with his arm strength. He looked pretty good on the deep ball. One of the last one in particular, the end of this game was crazy. The last minute and a half, there was like 17 points, I want to say, scored.
He was quick.
Yeah, it was crazy. The Charlotte should have won the game. There
was like 14 seconds left when they won, or when they scored or something like that.
No, there was a minute and a half left when they scored. Go ahead, touch the minute and a half left when Charlotte scored the go ahead touchdown, and I was screaming at the TV like the running back was running it in. I'm like, no, stop, like on the 2-yard line or something. Like, slow down, because there was way too much time. They were leaving for Memphis, and proved to be right. And I get it. Sometimes you don't think about those kind of things in that situation. But I think it was a minute 37 there, a minute 34, something like that. They left on the clock, and it proved to be detrimental. Seth Hennigan led them down the field, hit Rock Taylor in the corner of the end zone for the winning score. But yeah, I was impressed with Deshaun Purdy.
And then nothing sweeter than a Friday night. You're done with work for the week. You get just all G5 football all night. Like no P4. It's all G5. You've got at first kickoff, 7 p.m. Eastern, Georgia State at UConn. Georgia State's going to be making their switch at quarterback. Last week we saw Zach Gibson come in.
I think Zach Gibson started last week. He's going to start again this week.
Right, yeah. We saw him last week. And what we saw was Hurst got back some of those deep throws, right? Am I misremembering? He had one throw.
He caught one touchdown, but I think Waiver, when Waiver's in, it's good for Hurst, and when it's not as good when Gibson's in. He doesn't have the arm strength or doesn't trust his arm as much as Waiver. When Gibson's in there, I think he seems to kind of favor the tight end Dorian Fleming more.
Yep. And then The next game, we got South Florida at Florida Atlantic at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. The Battle
Who's
of
going to
Florida.
start for South Florida? We don't know, right? It's going to be Byron Brown, Bryce Archie, maybe Israel Carter. I'd love to see some Israel Carter.
It should be Israel Carter, but it's not going to be.
It's going to be Bryce Archie, you think? Man, I really want to see Israel Carter. I'm kind of bummed.
But yeah, we'll see Campbell run the ball there for Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic is 0-3 in the American, but I feel like that they could get this one. I feel like this is
if Bryce Archie plays, absolutely, man, absolutely. You got to feel for Sean Atkins. You know, they certainly not had the season he had hoped to have. That offense, just South Florida's been disappointing all year, even when Byron Brown was playing.
And then cap off the night, San Diego State at Boise State, 8 p.m. Eastern kickoff. I anticipate Boise State crushing it. Something people might not recognize if they're not following Mountain West football. San Diego State 3-4 overall, but 2-0 in the Mountain West. So you've got two undefeated teams.
Battle of two of the best running backs in the G5, Ashton Jeanty and Marquez Cooper. San Diego State played Washington State tough last week. Had a shot to win the game. You know, Danny O'Neal is a freshman quarterback, so he makes some mistakes. They rely heavily on Marquez Cooper. So I expect to see a lot of Marquez Cooper and a lot of Ashton Jeanty in this game.
And then that is going to do it for our midweek games. We've got a G5 versus P4 matchup in UMass at Mississippi State, Saturday, 4:15 p.m. Eastern kickoff. I don't like UMass's chances. I feel like also Mississippi State might just try to get some guys healthy. But Mississippi State honestly has been one of the worst teams in the P4.
I feel like they've been playing better offensively anyway the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
They have been, but I like Mississippi State to be able to pull this one out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Mississippi State's favored by 18.5, over under 59.5. Again, if they're going to hit that over under, it's going to be a lot of points for Mississippi State because I don't know that UMass offense, even though Mississippi State is not good by SEC standards, they still got SEC talent on that defense. So I'm not sure that UMass is, going to be able to score more than maybe like 10 points, if that, against Mississippi State defense.
All right. Well, let's get to our Saturday featured G5 versus G5 matchups. We've got Toledo at Eastern Michigan, Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern. I like Toledo to bounce back in this one. Eastern Michigan hasn't looked great lately, but Mims has been running the ball. He's been touching the ball about 20 times a game, so I figured they're going to be running it. And Cole Snyder's been running the ball well. So if Toledo can shut down the run, I like their chances. Tucker Gleason, that offense can score with the best of them. The defense has been pretty good. I expect Toledo to bounce back. It's at Eastern Michigan. You're on the gray turf. You're in the parking lot. Give me Toledo Rockets.
Yeah, I think, the loser of this game is pretty much eliminated from MAC championship game, I would say. I think it's going to be a battle, though. Toledo is favored by 8, over under 53.5. But yeah, I lean towards Toledo. But they could do like they did last week and have too many turnovers. Eastern Michigan beat them. So, whoever wins the turnover battle is probably going to be the winner of the game.
So we have 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff, Memphis at UTSA. This seems honestly like a trap game for Memphis. Like I said, Memphis has kind of been like this engine that like has a piston that's misfiring. Just kind of depends on how it's going. Memphis 3-1, UTSA 1-3. It's at UTSA. UTSA has been throwing the ball the last 4 weeks. It's like McCown's
they just blew a game like big time.
Yeah, they were up big. But like they've been throwing the ball a lot. It was like 50 attempts, 45, 47, and then 50 again. Like Memphis's defense has been shaky sometimes, and then they almost lose to Charlotte. This is a scary game, and I feel like it's a trap game. Like I feel like Memphis needs to control the clock here. They need to run the ball and just play solid defense. That's what they need to do. I still like Memphis in this one, but like honestly, if UTSA were to pull this one out, it would not be an upset in my book, but I think in others it would be.
Yeah, I think Memphis wins. Memphis is favored by 7.5, over under 60.5. Based on the both these teams' offenses, I could potentially see it being a shootout, but I don't think
fireworks, yeah.
I don't think UTSA is gonna beat Memphis.
All right, and then we've got Old Dominion at App State Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Just like you had thought at the beginning of the year, Justice, it's 3-1 Sun Belt record ODU against the 1-3 Sun Belt App State. You probably didn't have those flip-flopped in your head when the season, when everything came out. App State's kind of had a disappointing year. Caden Robinson still looking for his first touchdown of the season at App State.
Yeah, I expect to see the Monarchs run the ball a lot.
ODU
is favored. They're favored in the game by 2.5.
And they are clicking on all cylinders right now. They're probably playing some of the best football right now, and we saw what Braylon Braxton did just a few weeks ago.
The one thing I am thankful for in this game is it's not the first home game since all the hurricane stuff for Boone in Boone. They had a home game last week against Georgia State. And so I'm glad this isn't that first home game where they kind of get that extra boost in terms of fan support and energy and all that. I expect ODU to win. Billy, if you're looking for a prop bet, I'd be looking at the rushing total for Colton Joseph. I know last week the player prop for Colton, I think, was 66, and he ended up with 69. Not sure what they're if there's going to be one this week or not, but that'd be one I look at. I think Old Dominion just kind of runs all over App State. The two things that haven't been good for App State this year, the App State defense has not been very good this year, and the App State O-line has been pretty bad. And so, hopefully ODU can win and maintain their lead there in the Sun Belt East, or maintain pace. I believe that they're tied with, I think, Marshall and Georgia Southern. Obviously, they own the tiebreaker over the Eagles. Speaking of Marshall, they play UL Monroe. This is going to be a huge game, another huge Sun Belt game, right? Because whoever loses this gets their second loss in the Sun Belt. Even though Monroe is in the West and Marshall is in the Sun Belt East, it still counts as a conference loss. And so this game could also potentially eliminate someone from their respective conference, winning the East or the West. UL Monroe, Marshall is favored by 10.5 in this game at Washington. That seems super high to me. I don't know that Marshall wins this game, and I certainly don't know that I expect them to win it by 10.5. I realize the game's at Marshall. ULM, did not look great against South Alabama. I think South Alabama's offense is a little more capable, a little better than Marshall's. If I was going to bet on this game, I think I'm taking ULM and the points. The over/under is 47.5. You got any thoughts, Luke?
Yeah, I think I would take UL Monroe and the points. Marshall, again, they're a finicky offense as well.
And they blew a 21-point lead with not much time left to Georgia Southern just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you got 3-1 UL Monroe, 2-1 Marshall. Honestly, I think this is going to tell you a lot about UL Monroe, is how they bounce back in this game on the road. Honestly, I look for them to win this game. If I'm going to be honest.
I agree. I look for UL Monroe to win the game as well.
Then we have Georgia Southern at South Alabama. This, could be a
It's another big
high-scoring.
game, right? Even though it's interconference, interdivisions, it still counts as a conference loss. So again, 2 1 loss teams.
Yeah. So give me a second as I try to find it here.
Georgia Southern did not look great against Old Dominion. Hopefully they can get some of that magic back that they had earlier in the season. They seem like they're going to be playing that quarterback roulette potentially between J.C. French and Dexter Williams III. I know Georgia Southern fans are clamoring for Dexter Williams III. I got to tell you, based on what I saw from him Thursday night, he ain't the answer, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, if I was them, I'd buy. If I was going to clamor for someone, I think I'd be clamoring for Josh Dallas again. But sometimes if you got 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you don't have one. That's kind of seems like the potential road that Georgia Southern is kind of headed down.
Yeah, and I like South Alabama in this one. They're at home.
They're favored by 6.5.
Yeah, I think I would take
South Alabama. I agree. I agree.
All right, and then we have Colorado State at Nevada. Colorado State a sneaky 3-0 Mountain West team against an 0-3 Nevada team there in the Mountain West. I anticipate Colorado State running the ball. I don't know what the over-under is in this, but let's say if it's at, because let's see here, I automatically go to about 55 and a half. They're going to run the ball. Both teams probably going to run the ball. So I'm probably there around 48-ish. I kind of like the under there. I don't think it'll be a very, very high-scoring game.
The over-under is 44.5, and Colorado State is only favored by 1.5. So again, what that line tells me is they're expecting Brendan Lewis to play.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into our G5 Hive 2020 guys here. Start off with the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, they are in the top 20 in pass attempts and the top 20 in passing yards. If they're in both of those categories, they make it. If they're only in one of them, they do not make this list. Let's start here. Chandler Morris, Spencer Petras, Kitna, Hennigan, McCown, McLeod, they're all averaging the most completions per game in the G5. Morris and Petras are the only guys on this list averaging more than 300 yards passing per game. Chandler Morris, North Texas, comes in at number 1 for me. He's got the least amount of time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.48 seconds. He's got the most big time throws in the G5 with 23. He's tied for third in the G5 in turnover worthy plays with 15, averaging 28 completions per game, which is the most in the G5, and he has the most passing touchdowns in the G5 with 26. Joey Aguilar sneakily comes in at number 2 for App State. He's tied for third in the G5 in turnover-worthy plays at 15. He's got the second highest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 11.1, but he's got the yardage. They're always playing from behind, and he's doing a good job of completing those passes. So I'm just waiting for this blow-up touchdown game. We saw a much better week this last week. Let's see if he can string together a couple more. Number 3, Jordan McLeod, Texas State. He's got the least amount of turnover-worthy plays of these 2020 guys with 5, and is second in the G5 in passing touchdowns with 20. So protects the ball, throws touchdowns. I like that mixture. Jordan McLeod there at number 3. Number 4, Spencer Petras, Utah State. We've got the Jalen Royals news. We've got a bye this week. We'll see if he's able to come back or not. Again, contradicting to reports out there, but I'm going to hashtag stand on business. Tucker Gleason comes in at number 5 for me. Toledo, he's got the least amount of pass attempts per game of these 2020 guys with 31, and tied for the least amount of big-time throws of these 2020 guys with 5. Makes sense. If you're not throwing the ball, maybe the ones that you are throwing are not the big-time throws. Owen McCowan, UTSA, comes in at number 6. I just talked about how much they've been passing it lately. The last 4 weeks, he's thrown 50, 43, 45, and 50 times. He's got 10 touchdowns over those 4 games, averaging 262 yards passing and 2.5 touchdowns per game. Seth Hennigan comes in at number 7. Memphis quarterback. He's tied for second in the G5 in big-time throws with a 19 after that rocky start. Kind of has this offense clicking a little bit more than it was at the beginning of the season. Number 8, Evan Simon Temple, sneakily averaging 8 rush attempts per game and 27 yards per game on the ground. Sacks not included. He's managing the games pretty well for Temple. Temple's actually been doing pretty well this year, better than I had thought, and in a lot more games. Mikey Keene, they're at number 9, Fresno State quarterback. He's got the least amount of rushing yards per game of this group with 3. Definitely don't expect him to be running around. He's going to be a pocket passer, passing it around. Jalen Kitna, UAB, comes in at number 10, second most time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.91 seconds, tied for the least amount of big-time throws of the 2020 guys with 5. Also makes sense. He's only started like the last 3 games, or maybe it's the last 2 games, and came in for that 3rd game. He hasn't had a whole bunch, but I wanted to add him in here because when he's out there, he's throwing a lot. He's per game in this 2020 group. So if this is going to be him moving forward, I want you guys to know about Jalen Kitna. He's also got the lowest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 7.3. Devin Dampier comes in at number 14, New Mexico, tied for second in the G5 with big-time throws with 19. So that's kind of a sneaky stat. I'm not so sure people would know. Highest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 11.5. Again, he's throwing the ball pretty well. Most rushing yards per game from this group was 69 per game, averaging double-digit rush attempts per game with 10. I think I missed a couple guys. Oh, no, I didn't.
You just said the wrong number for Dampier, that's all.
Okay, I said 14. He's number 11. He's number 11. Sorry. Number 12, Cole Snyder, Eastern Michigan. Been doing a lot of damage there on the ground. Braden Shager comes in at number 13 for Hawaii. The most time to throw these 2020 guys with 2.94 seconds. Jalen Rager makes his, I think, debut. Maybe he was there early in the season, dropped out. Arkansas State quarterback. He's got the least amount of touchdowns with 7 from this group. Well, I guess technically it's Kitna because he only has 4, but again, way less starts. So Rayner had been starting all season, not throwing for many touchdowns. I think he just had the game last week in which they won, I believe. I don't think he threw for a touchdown in that one. So not getting a lot of touchdowns there. And then number 15, Nicholas Vadiato, Middle Tennessee, rounds out the top 15 quarterbacks. Running back wise, everyone on this list is at 91 yards per game or more with at least 16 opportunities per game. So these are like workhorse guys in some fashion. You've got Ashton Jeanty, Boise State, coming in at number 1, 64 missed tackles forced, the most in the G5, the most touchdowns in the G5 with 18. Mario Anderson at number 2, Memphis running back, second in the G5 in touchdowns with 13, averages 4 receptions per game. You got Mekhi Hughes coming in at number 3. Number 4, Rasul Faison, Utah State, is the second most forced missed tackles in the G5 with 53. If we're not going to see much Royals the rest of the season, I expect, and Brock Lane being out, I think we see a lot of Rasul the rest of the season. Marquez Cooper, San Diego State, comes in at number 5. We're really excited to see the matchup there of running backs number 1 versus number 5 for the G5 Hive going at it Friday night. Trey Stewart, Jacksonville State, comes in at number 6. Yards after contact per attempt is second of these 2020 guys with 5.24 yards. Third in the G5 in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns with 11. So there's 3 guys with double digits. It's Trey Stewart, it's Mario Anderson, and Ashton Genty. Braden Sloan, Ball State, number 7. He's got the least amount of forced missed tackles of these 2020 guys with 16. He's first of the 2020 guys in receiving yards per game with 39. That's also second in the G5. Coming in at number 8, Ahmad Hardy, Louisiana, tied for last of the 2020 guys in total yards per game with 94. True freshman, comes in, averaging 94 yards per game, been there since day one. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. Just not going to do a lot in the receiving game. Ishmael Mahdi, on the other hand, he'll do something in the receiving games. He lit up ODU a couple weeks ago, but he's got the least amount of touchdowns of these 2020 guys with only 2. He's only been able to find the end zone twice this year. Number 10, Terran Stewart, Bowling Green, 0 receiving yards per game, tied for last of the 2020 guys in total yards with Ahmad Hardy with 94. Again, him and Hardy not doing a lot in the passing game, but at least Ahmad Hardy will get looked at. So Dean Connors comes in at number 11 for Rice, second of the 2020 guys in receiving yards per game with 36, which is third in the G5, averaging 5 receptions per game. I don't really know. I did not get to lay my eyes on that UConn game.
It was an ugly game for Rice.
He had a whole bunch of receptions, but there was not many yards to go with it. Number 12, Avery Morrow, Colorado State. And then Ontario Brown drops down to number 13 for me this week. He's been kind of in and out. He got kind of banged up a little bit, nicked up in this game. We'll see if he's able to stay on the list coming in week 10. All right, wide receivers. All the guys here are averaging 74 plus yards per game. Nick Nash, San Jose State, leads the G5 in touchdowns with 12. Only guy in the G5 averaging double-digit receptions per game with 10. Jalen Royals, I am going to keep him in here until he's probably missed a couple more weeks. Again, I'm not so ready to take him out quite yet. He's one of 2 players averaging double digits targets on the season, but obviously his stats are going to stay stagnant here. We got a bye week, and then we'll see what happens after that. Caden Robinson comes in at number 3, App State, still with 0 touchdowns on the year, but he's getting you receptions, he's getting you yards. DT Sheffield pops up here to number 4, North Texas wide receiver, tied for second in touchdowns in the G5 with 10 receiving touchdowns, I should say. Lowest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 6.2, yet he has the highest yards after catch per reception of the 2020 guys with 9.4. You got Ricky White, again, number 5. I talked about having kind of a down week this week. Boise State kept him in check. But again, that Haj Malik Williams switch at quarterback has done wonders for Ricky White. Number 6, Luke Wysong, New Mexico. We'll see if he's able to go this week or not. Again, he was in a boot, so it's going to be hard to see him going. If he misses a few games, we'll see how this one goes. But right
Javen
now,
Jacobs could be a beneficiary, I think, if Luke Wysong's unable to go. Running back.
And then Jamal Pritchett at number 7, South Alabama. He's tied for last of the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8, which is pretty amazing. Like, getting 8 targets per game, pretty good. Second of these guys for yards after catch per reception of the 2020 guys with 8.2. Number 8, Troy wide receiver, Devontae Ross. He had a boon game this last week, but that move there at quarterback, typically, I don't think that game that we saw this last week from Ross, I'm not so sure we see a lot more of those games because it's been rough.
Yeah.
When
without Goose Crowder, it's been rough.
Yeah, Goose. Dante Wright, Temple, he missed last week. They're on a bye this week. He's tied for last of the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8, averaging the least amount of yards per game of the 2020 guys with 74. I can see this bye week kind of kicking him maybe out of this 2020 list. Drawn Newton, Toledo, tied for second in the G5 in touchdowns with 10, tied for the least amount, or tied for last in the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8. So getting you 8 targets, but getting you a lot of touchdowns. When you say like, process over results, doesn't apply to Newton. He's getting, I think, like 4 receptions a game or 5 receptions a games, and he's getting touchdowns galore. Camden Benjamin, Tulsa comes in at number 11. Again, switch there at quarterback. Cooper Lagasse should be the starter, and that really helped out Camden Benjamin in this last week. Corey Rucker, Arkansas State, he had a boon game this last week. He comes in at number 12. And then Amari Kelly, Middle Tennessee, comes in at number 13 and 14. We talked about him a little bit before, but Justin Lockhart, San Jose State, tied for last of the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8, averaging the least amount of receptions per game of the 2020 guys with 4, leads the 2020 guys in average depth of target with 19.7, the lowest yards after catch per reception of the 2020 guys with 3.1. So he's not getting very many receptions. They're deep down the field, and he's going down as soon as he's getting them. But they're throwing the ball to him after this quarterback change. Tight ends. Again, the same names. I just moved Terrence Carter ahead of Dorian Fleming this week because, I get it. Louisiana was on a bye, but Terrence Carter is just crushing it as of late. So I'm just going to kind of go through some stats for these tight ends just so you have an idea. Harold Fannin, Bowling Green, this is per game averages. 8 receptions on 10 targets, 118 yards, and then he's got 6 touchdowns on the year. Tanner Kozoil comes in at number 2, Ball State, 8 receptions on 9 targets for 72 yards, also 6 touchdowns on the year. Holden Willis, Middle Tennessee State, 5 receptions on 7 targets for 74 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. Terrence Carter, Louisiana, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 66 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. Dorian Fleming, Georgia State, 4 receptions on 6 targets for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year. That does it for the offensive side. Justice, take it away for the defensive side.
All right. We will start off with the defensive end, or edge, as some folks call them. All these guys are ranked based on havoc rate. Havoc rate is a combination of things: sacks, tackles for loss, quarterback pressures, stops on 3rd and 4th down are also included in that. Number 1 should be no surprise at this point. He has been in the top 5 every week since week 1. Mike Green, he's the only guy on this list that's been here every week. Mike Green, defensive end, Marshall, havoc rate of 16.2%. He ranks 2nd among defensive ends and quarterback pressures with 33. Number 2, defensive end Eric O'Neill, James Madison, havoc rate of 15.3%, has a rush win rate of 16%. Number 3 and 4, we got a pair of teammates here. First up, number 3, defensive end Bradley Weaver, Ohio, havoc rate of 14.9%. He ranks 5th in sacks with 6. And then his teammate, first time on the list, is Marcel Walker. Marcel Walker Burgess from Ohio, havoc rate of 14.5%. He ranks 10th among defensive linemen and tackles per game with 3.88. And then rounding out the top 5, defensive end Brian Ugwu, Miami, Ohio, havoc rate of 14.3%. And he ranks 1st among the defensive end and quarterback pressures with 37. Moving over to the interior guys, the defensive tackles, and we have 3 new guys this week. Top 2 are brand new to the list, and they're a pair of teammates. Once again, defensive tackle number 1, Skylar Gill Howard, Northern Illinois, havoc rate of 14.2%. He ranks second among defensive tackles in quarterback pressures with 18. His teammate Devontae O'Malley comes in at number 2, also from Northern Illinois. Havoc rate of 13.5%. He has a rush win rate of 15%. So those two guys are getting things done in the middle there for the Northern Illinois Huskies. Number 3, defensive tackle Anthony Hawkins, Bowling Green, havoc rate of 11.1%. He ranks second among defensive tackles in sacks with 4. Coming in at number 4, defensive tackle Peyton Price, Eastern Michigan, havoc rate of 10.4%. And he ranks first among defensive tackles in quarterback pressures with 19. Rounding out the top 5, defensive tackle Deonta Johnson, East Carolina, havoc rate of 10.1%. And he ranks first among defensive tackles in tackles for loss with 5. The MAC is well represented in the interior D-line. 4 of those 5 guys play in the MAC, with Deonta Johnson the lone representative from the American. Moving over to the linebackers, these guys lead the G5 in tackles per game. The same 5 guys as last week, but they're not in the same order. Teammates, again, number 1 and number 2. Sean Dolak, Buffalo, leads the G5 in tackles per game at 11.75. He has extremely low missed tackle rate of 4.1%. His teammate, Red Murdoch, comes in at number 2. He's coming on strong. He's catching Sean. Maybe he'll pass Sean this week or the next week in tackles. But right now he's number 2, coming in at 11.5 tackles per game. He has 6 sacks on the season. So not only is he, a tackling machine, he's also getting pressure on the quarterback. Number 3, linebacker Travion Barnes, Florida International, having a phenomenal season for the Panthers. 11.25 tackles per game. He has 10 total quarterback pressures on the season. If Reggie Peterson had not retired or had retired before the season, Travion Barnes could be your tackle leader, because he didn't get very many tackles in that first game because Reggie Peterson played. He kind of took off once Reggie Peterson announced his retirement from football. Number 4, linebacker Colin Ramos, Navy, 10.86 tackles per game. He has a pretty low missed tackle rate as well of 9.5%. And rounding out the top 5, linebacker Jaden Yates from Marshall, 9.43 tackles per game, and has a solo tackle rate of 67%. All right, let's move over to the DBs. We're going to start with the cornerbacks. These guys are all ranked based on adjusted net yards per coverage snap. So you're looking at what happens when the quarterback targets these guys. So you're looking at how many catches, how many yards go against them, how many interceptions they get, all that divided by their snaps and coverage. Number 1 is cornerback Deshaun Peel from Navy, with an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.178. He ranks 4th among DB's interceptions with 3. Coming in at number 2, cornerback Terrence Spence, James Madison, an adjusted net yards against of 0.113. He ranked 1st in interceptions with 5. Coming in at number 3, Dante Joyner, Arkansas State, adjusted net yards against of 0.150, averages 4.63 tackles per game. Number 4, Rayshawn Pleasant, Tulane, adjusted net yards against of 0.217, and has a quarterback rating against of 43.6. And rounding out the top 5, he's been on this list the last several weeks. Cornerback Torrey Richardson, Temple, adjusted net yards against of 0.250, and he has 5 pass breakups on the year. To kind of give you guys some perspective, typically the top NFL corners will have a number maybe slightly less than 3. All these guys are less than 1, and in Deshaun Peel's case, he actually has a negative number. All right, let's move over to the safeties. Same criteria, adjusted net yards against per coverage snap, and all of these guys have negative numbers, so they're all having phenomenal seasons. Number 1, safety Jerron Manning, Old Dominion, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.556. He's also averaging 6.75 tackles per game, getting it done in run support as well as in coverage. Number 2, Jacob Thomas, James Madison, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.389, has a quarterback rating against of 0.00. Coming at number 3, Tyree Skipper, Louisiana, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.237, and he ranks 3rd in interceptions with 3. Number 4, back on the list this week. He had been off the list for a week or two. Safety Wydett Williams Jr., Louisiana Monroe, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.072, and he's averaging 7.29 tackles per game. So he's another safety like Jerron Manning. They're getting it done both in run support as well as in coverage. And then rounding out the top 5, new to the list this week, David Carter Jr., Eastern Michigan, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.063. And he has a quarterback rating against of 41.7. And that's going to do it for our 2020 guys, the top players in the G5 at the various positions. All right.
Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, I see that there are several of you watching us on X. Please give us a follow, a like, a retweet. Again, and if you're listening to us in podcast form, stop what you're doing. Go in there, give us a 5-star rating because we're giving you 5-star information. Justice, we got waiver wire. We're going to make our switch from actual football talk to the fantasy world. Fantasy football talk here going into week 10. We're down through 9 weeks. College fantasy football playoffs are right around the corner. We got 2 weeks.
This week,
a lot of leagues. 2 weeks before.
2 weeks left.
Who are your waiver wire pickups here on quarterback?
All right, let's look at the quarterbacks here. Ben Wildridge, Louisiana, only 28% owned. He's averaging 23.8 points per game, and he's had a rushing touchdown in 4 of his last 5 games. Next up, Parker Navarro, only 14% owned from Ohio. He's a little bit up and down. He sometimes gets benched. If he doesn't get benched, he has a big game. It seems very, very turnover dependent. He has 80 plus rushing yards though in 3 of his last 4. He as long as he can keep those turnovers under control, he can be very productive quarterback for your fantasy team. Next up, Spencer Petras, Utah State, 19%. He is on a bye this week. He's also a 2020 guy, so don't want to spend too much time on him. But no Royals or Brock Lane. We'll see kind of if they try to remold this offense coming out of the bye week here in 2 weeks. Next up, Colton Joseph, Old Dominion. We've talked about him a lot tonight. Had a huge game this week. He's only 8% owned. Had his coming out party, if you will. He was my player of the week. He had 300 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, and then 69 yards rushing, and another touchdown on the ground. He is a dual threat. He right now is kind of clicking on all cylinders for Old Dominion. Definitely, if he is available in your leagues, and I'm not him, you should go grab him. In leagues in most of my leagues, he's already owned. I think there was 1 or 2 he wasn't, and I put in aggressive bids for him, being an Old Dominion fan. All right, next is Owen McCown, 19% owned, UTSA. Again, he's a 2020 guy. As Luke just told you, they are slinging it around big time. So if you need a quarterback this week because of buys or whatnot, I know a lot of my teams are in trouble this week because of I have a lot of players with a week 10 bye. Owen McCown, you could do a lot worse than Owen McCown at quarterback. All right, Hunter Watson, dual threat, should be back this week. He is only 8% owned from Sam Houston. Again, like Luke said, look for him to possibly get another 100 yards on the ground this week. So if you're looking for a dual threat quarterback, you might want to take a look there at Hunter Watson. Next up, this guy is new. We haven't talked about him yet. He's kind of taken over that East Carolina Pirate offense, and that's Caden Hauser. He's only 6% owned. He started the last 2 weeks. Over those last 2 weeks, he has 28 points and 27 points and 8 passing touchdowns. Definitely someone that's kind of on the upswing. He's kind of he's a new guy on this list. Folks might not have caught on to him yet, but he looks like he's kind of taken over that East Carolina offense. Next up, we have Cooper Lega, Tulsa. Again, 2% owned. He's very much a boomer bust play. The Tulsa quarterback room has been a mess, but maybe they'll stick with Lega now. He is a dual threat, and he led them to that huge comeback win this past week in Week 9, where they were down, was it 28 points, I think it was, in the second half. Cooper Lega was the one to lead them to that win. He scored 37.92 points this game. So, again, if you're kind of desperate for a quarterback, Cooper Lega is someone you can take a look at. Cole Schneider, Eastern Michigan, 7% owned. He's not going to give you a high ceiling, but he does give you a pretty consistent floor. He has had 20-plus points in 3 of his last 4 games. And then this last guy, he's probably a much better – well, he is. He's a much better real-life quarterback than he is a fantasy quarterback. But, again, he gives you a solid floor. And that's Darian Mensah at Tulane, only 12% owned. He doesn't do anything flashy, but he looks like the real deal. He's super accurate. Like I said, again, a really good quarterback, good floor. If you're in a C2C league, he's someone, if he's available, I might be looking at, because I don't know his measurables. I'd have to go look that up. But I mean, the dude is freaking accurate as hell. One of the more impressive quarterbacks from a technical perspective in terms of the G5 guys. All right, let's move over to the running backs. And what do we have, Luke?
All right. And we talked about the injury to Malik Sherrod earlier, but Elijah Gilliams, Fresno State, 10% owned. Sherrod's been out. He's got games of 22.8, 28, and 19.8 points the last 3 games. They've got Hawaii here in Week 10. I anticipate them being able to run the ball pretty well. And I like Elijah Gilliam this week. Ahmad Hardy, UL Monroe, 25% owned. He's a 2020 guy, double-digit carries all season. He's now had 4 100 yards rushing games in a row. 16.7, 14.2, 31.4, and 10.8 points. He had in that loss this last week, you would think that like game script wouldn't favor him a whole bunch because he's not catching the ball. He still had 20 rushes for 104 yards. They've got Marshall here in Week 10. Delbert Mims, the third, Eastern Michigan, 16% owned. Last week, or the last 4 weeks, he's had fantasy outputs of 30.6, 18.5, 14.2, and 17.3. 20-plus touches in 4 straight weeks, 13 targets over the last 4 weeks, too. They've got a tough matchup with Toledo in this week, then a bye before Ohio, Buffalo, and Western Michigan. So you like that schedule there at the end of the season. But, yeah, finding, like, running backs who are getting this type of volume at this point of the season that are still out there, do yourself a favor, go pick up Delbert Mims, Ahmad Hardy, Jaquiz Cross, Arkansas State, 21% owned the last 4 games. He had a dud this last week of a 6.7, but before that he had 33.1, 22.5, and 12.7. Over that stretch, he's seen an opportunity of 16, 25, 15, and 14. Unfortunately, he's only had 2 touchdowns over that time, but he's only had 2 touchdowns, but yet he still gets 33.1, 22.5, 12.7. Again, the dud in 6.7 this last week, but he is an opportunity there. He's 9th in the G5 in receptions per game with 2.9. So he's going to get you 2-3 receptions per game. He's 16th in receiving yards per game with 20.6. So you're going to get 4 points from him a week in just receiving work. So you can do worse than Jaquiz Cross, Arkansas State here. And then my next set of running backs here are kind of some upside. I don't have as much confidence as this group of guys as the previous group. So if you're like, hey, who should I prioritize? I would say prioritize that first group that I just got to talking about. But these are some names to know and some deep additions to your leagues. You've got Elijah Young, or I guess I did not talk about Elijah Young on the previous slide. Sorry. Before, I would also put Elijah Young in this, like, hey, good names to know that I think can help you sooner rather than later. Western Kentucky, 10% owned. He had a bye in week 9, but before that, he had 16 plus carries in each of the last 3 weeks. And he's involved in the passing game with 11 targets over the last 3 weeks. They have Kennesaw State in week 10. Sign me up. Now we get into the guys that I'm not as confident in. I need to see a little bit more from them, but we're running out of time, so I want to give you these guys' names. Maybe you feel more confident in them this week. Maybe you're looking for somebody. There's a lot of buys this week, including this first one that I'm going to mention, but I like his schedule the rest of the season is George Pettaway, James Madison, 21% owns. The last 4 weeks, he's seen opportunity of 16, 17, and 20. Only 2 touchdowns over that time, but seeing outputs of 10.7, 16.8, 11.1, and 23.3 over that time. Again, I said they got a bye this week, but then Georgia State, ODU, App State, and Marshall, all favorable matchups for against the run game here coming up.
Well, not against ODU. ODU is pretty good against the run. I give you the other ones.
Okay. Georgia State, Michael Dukes. No one's talking about Michael Dukes, and this one's an interesting one. Justice, you had him in here last week. He's a great for PPR plays. His targets the last 4 weeks, 5, 8, 7, and 3. That's equated to fantasy outputs of 6.3, 16.6, 28.9, and 16.4. They've got UConn here in week 10. You got this change in quarterback who only had 5 targets this last week, but I kind of like Michael Dukes for Georgia State this week, especially if you need some help PPR point wise. Half point PPR leagues, I'm not as excited about them. Jordan Simmons, another PPR monster, Akron, 3% owned. He's coming off a game where he had 16 carries for 109 yards, 1 reception for 1 yard. And that was good for 12 fantasy points in week 9. The crazy thing is how little he was utilized in this receiving game. 3 weeks ago, he had 5 receptions for 32 yards. He led the team in receptions. He was second on the team in receiving yards. The following week, he had 6 receptions for 97 yards. In that game, he was second on the team in receptions and in receiving yards. He accounts for 10.8% of the team's receptions. He's averaging 18.5 fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. If you are in a point per reception league or a PPR league, give Jordan Simmons a look. Floyd Chalk, San Jose State, 25% owned. We've talked about this quarterback. I don't know what you call it. Merry-go-round, whatever you want to call it. But his last 5 games, he's had fantasy outputs of 21.4, 17.7, 13.1, 15.1, and then this last week he had 8.9. He's seen double-digit carries in those matchups, 6 rushing touchdowns over that stretch. He's going to give you about 80 to 90 yards and a touchdown kind of guy. So if you need something, look for Floyd Chalk. And then another name that I like, even though they've been passing the ball around a lot, is Robert Henry, UTSA, 4% owned. The last 2 weeks, he's seen 20 and 25 opportunities, capitalizing for 15.9 and 18.9 points. They've got Memphis in week 10 before a bye, then North Texas, then Temple. I like Robert Henry as an option. Again, they've been passing the ball a lot, but he's been doing work for him the last couple weeks. Justice, what do you have for wide receivers?
Let's look at Luke Fioria, Kent State. they've been disappointing. They're just in terms of wins. The stats haven't been great, the last couple weeks, but he's only 16% owned. They are on a bye this week, but he does have 14 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games. Hopefully, they can get some things figured out after the bye week, and in 2 weeks come out with guns a-blazing. Next up, Junior Vanderross, Toledo, 16%. A great floor guy. He's averaging just under 16 points per game, and he has 11 plus targets in each of his last 3 games. Florida International wide receiver Dean Patterson. We're going to talk about his teammate here in a minute. 11% owned. He's been a little bit up and down, but he seems to kind of be very in tune with Keon Jenkins. If Jenkins is in there and throwing well, Dean Patterson is going to have a good game. If that's not the case, he's not going to do so great. Adrian Norton, Akron, PPR monster, 11% owned. Other than week 1, Adrian Norton has scored double-digit fantasy points in every contest. So you love to see that consistency. And then rounding out this group, Orrin Singleton, Eastern Michigan, 8% owned, 15 plus points in 3 of the last 5. And this past week, he had 20.2 points in week 9. All right, Kenny Womack leads this next group, 25% owned. Again, he has a bye week this week, so you need to wait 2 weeks for him to produce for you. But he has double-digit points in 4 of the last 5 games. The aforementioned Justin Lockhart, 11% owned, the number 2 wide receiver in an offense that throws the ball a lot. He doesn't necessarily get the amount of targets that Nick Nash does, but he's not too far behind in yards in this offense. Next up, this guy has been coming on really strong with the addition of Caton Hauser at quarterback. That's Chase Sewell, East Carolina, 16% owned. In the last 2 weeks with Caton Hauser at quarterback, he's put up 20-plus points. Kind of getting back into that groove he was in at the end of last year. Next up, Dean Patterson's teammate, and arguably he's the more consistent of the two, and that's Eric Rivers, Florida International, 18% owned. Like I said, he's more consistent than Dean Patterson, and he's getting double-digit points in the last 7 games. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about a new guy to the list this week, someone we haven't talked about in previous weeks. And that's Jaden Smith, Nevada, 14% owned. He's had 12 targets per week in each of the last 2 weeks, and he scored double-digit points in 4 of the last 5. So that's just someone new, wanted to bring to light. Jaden Smith, hopefully they get Brendan Lewis back this week, by all accounts, and Jaden Smith can keep producing for you there at wide receiver.
All right. Tight ends. Is it weird to say there was actually a lot of names that I really liked this week? A couple of the same names, but again, usually we only have like 4 in this one. I have 6 this week. So we've got Dorian Fleming, Georgia State, 2020 guy. He's 26% owned. He's giving you 6 targets, 4 receptions, and 48 yards per game. John Michael Gillenborg, Wyoming, 25% owned. Just 2 weeks ago, he had his monster week of 24.7. He had 10 targets, 137 yards, and a touchdown. Last week, he had a dud, 1.1 point, 1 reception on 4 targets for 6 yards. He's averaging 5 targets and 52 yards. They've got New Mexico in week 10.
Be interesting to see if the quarterback switch affects him.
Yeah. The quarterback is what I am interested in because he's got it. So, like, I would like to have him on my team. I don't think I want to start him until I can see something more out of him. Pat Conroy. You heard of this guy, Justice?
I have. He's targeted quite a bit. I think I dare what I say he's Colton Joseph's favorite receiver.
Since he is 3% owned, ODU tight end. Since Colton Joseph has taken over at QB, he has seen targets of 7, 3, and 5. He's got 15 yards, 61 yards, 22 yards, and 83 yards, giving you 2.5, 9.6, 3.7, and 15.8 points. They've got App State in Week 10. They might run the ball a lot, but I do like Pat Conroy.
He does get targeted like on some deep shots. Now they don't always like hit him every week. And I think that's what you're seeing there. But I feel like he gets one kind of big play per week.
When you saw this, because we do these separate, when you saw that I had him in here, what were your initial thoughts? Or did you see it? Is this the first time you're seeing it?
No, I saw it earlier and I was like, yeah, I mean, I it makes sense. I mean, I can tell you right now, like I'm in some leagues where I've had some bad, I have bye week blues, so to speak, and I had to pick Pat Conroy up to start him, and and there I think the next guy you're going to talk about were probably the two most common names available in my leagues. So those are the two that I added where I could if I had bye week issues at tight end this week.
That player is Houston Thomas, UTSA tight end, 0% owned, averaging 43 yards per game on 4 targets, only getting 2 receptions per game. He's only got 1 touchdown in the year, but the targets the last 4 weeks, 7, 3, 6, and 10, giving you yardage of 20, 43, 63, 132. You like that upward trend. They've got Memphis in Week 10. We think that this game could be a shootout. Houston Thomas, a guy I'm not hearing about at all that I think could be used here in Week 10. Blake Bosma, Western Michigan, they're on a bye this week, 28% owned. I don't imagine – we might talk about him next week because they've on a bye. Maybe no one's going to pick him up. Points the last 5 weeks, 12.3, 18.4, 5.8, 32.5, and 17.9. They've got this bye week before they've got NIU, Bowling Green, Central Michigan, and Eastern Michigan. So, I mean, Western Michigan versus Central Michigan versus Eastern Michigan, it's going to be directional match-offs, directional school match-offs there in Michigan. But I like Blake going forward the rest of the season. And then Taylor Thompson, James Madison, 28% owned. His last 5 games, target-wise, has been 7, 9, 3, 5, and 3. Fantasy points of 20.1, 10.9, 13.8, 4.6, and 9.5 over that stretch. He's got an average depth of target of 11 and a half. So he's getting that nice usage there. They've got, again, a bye in Week 10 before they've got Georgia State, ODU, App State, and Marshall. So I like Taylor Thompson's outlook for the rest of the season. All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Come back and join us next week as we discuss what happened in Week 10, as well as look forward to Week 11 of the 2024 season. And as always, we bring you up to date on all the latest news and happenings in the world of G5 college football. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, please give us a retweet, a like, and a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and give those 5-star ratings and reviews. Again, Justice has it. If you're watching us on YouTube, the G5 Hive merch store, you can find all of our stuff there. If you want to support us, go buy some merch, support G5 Hive. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.